Ooh, I met a little girl. Oh, sure was fine.
Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are going to discuss a little bit about the unfortunate political reality that looks set to take us down today and tomorrow and the next day. Climate change is nowhere near the top of the list of importance, it seems, among all the other, really important topics like, is Trump going to change the 14th Amendment? There's a migrant caravan. There's, obviously these are, depending on where you sit in the world and where you sit on the political spectrum, obviously, very scary, weird, crazy things are going on in the world, but they're not as crazy and scary and weird as the fact that we are at the very beginning of a biosphere collapse, at the very beginning of the sixth mass extinction. And that, if that sounds terrible, sixth mass extinction, it's because it is, and it probably is going to hurt a little bit. And it looks like there's nobody around to save us. There's nobody with any really great ideas pushing forward. Although, we've got something happening, and this is worth some attention in my book. It's, it's a start, it's an effort, it is a call to action, and it is the Extinction Rebellion, which looks to be forming in the UK. I don't know if any of y'all saw the George Monbiot speech at the Extinction Rebellion protest. It's going to be in this article that I'm going to link, but I'm going to read this article. This happened yesterday, I believe. But the article is from today. UK activists kick off Extinction Rebellion. More than 1,000 UK climate activists launched a massive civil disobedience campaign Wednesday when they blocked several roads near London's Parliament Square, The Guardian reported. Once again, The Guardian giving us, being one of the better outlets giving us climate awareness news. The newly formed group Extinction Rebellion seeks to push the UK government to declare a state of emergency, work towards a carbon-free economy by 2025, and convene an assembly of ordinary citizens to plan out the country's carbon-free future. The group's message has caught on in the wake of increasingly dire reports about the pace of climate change. Organizers had expected a few hundred to show up to the opening salvo near the seat of UK government. Instead, more than 1,000 came out and decided to block one of London's busiest intersections for more than 2 hours. Good for you guys. Way to disrupt business as usual. Yes, Wednesdays are great days to have protests. Mondays are good days. Tuesdays are really good days. You know what's a terrible day to have a protest? Saturday and Sunday. Let's see, the disruption we are causing today is nothing to the destruction that our governments are unleashing by not taking serious steps to stop the ecological crisis, 28-year-old demonstrator Felix told The Guardian. I've never been to prison before, but I feel I have to try and do something. In total, 15 people were arrested Wednesday, then released without charge, but the group says hundreds of members are prepared to go to prison in a series of escalating demonstrations in London next month that will build toward a sit-in in Parliament Square November 17th. That's quite soon. And occupations of various London bridges. People are no longer prepared to sit back and watch our politicians and corporations drive us off the cliff to ecological destruction, organizer Gail Bradbook told The Guardian. This is an emergency situation and it needs an emergency response. The group read out their declaration of rebellion against the government's lack of adequate action on climate change. And that is listed in this article as well. Let's check out this declaration of rebellion, shall we, just a little bit? Oh, I cannot read it. Can I get it any bigger? Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to list it. You can read it. Maybe I'll just start a little bit. This is our darkest hour. Humanity finds itself embroiled in an event unprecedented in history, one which, unless immediately addressed, will catapult us further into the destruction of all we hold dear. This nation, its people, our ecosystems, and the future of generations to come. The science is clear. We are in the 6th mass extinction event, and we will face catastrophe if we do not act swiftly and robustly. Biodiversity is being annihilated around the world. Our seas are poisoned, acidic, and rising. Flooding and desertification will render vast tracts of land uninhabitable and lead to mass migration. Our air is so toxic that the United Kingdom is breaking the law. It harms the unborn whilst causing tens of thousands to die. The breakdown of our climate has begun. There will be more wildfires, unpredictable superstorms, increasing famine, and untold drought as food supplies and fresh water disappear. The ecological crisis that we are impacting upon this nation, and indeed the planet and its wildlife, can no longer be ignored, denied, or go unanswered by any beings of sound rational thought, ethical conscience, moral concern, or spiritual belief. Wait, hold on. In accordance with these values, the virtues of truth and the weight of science, I'm reading the tiniest font possible, you guys. The weight of scientific evidence, we declare it is our duty to act on behalf of the security and well-being of our children, our communities, and the future of the planet itself. We, in alignment with our consciences and our reasoning, declare ourselves in rebellion against our government and the corrupted, inept institutions that threaten our future. The willful complicity displayed by our government has shattered meaningful democracy and cast aside the common interest in favor of short-term gain and private profits. I believe that George Monbiot read most of this while speaking. When government and the law fail to provide any assurance of adequate protection as well as security for its people's well-being and the nation's future, it becomes the right of its citizens to seek redress in order to restore dutiful democracy and to secure the solutions needed to avert catastrophe and protect the future. It becomes not only our right, it becomes our sacred duty to rebel. We hereby declare the bonds of the social contract to be null and void, which the government has rendered invalid by its continuing failure to act appropriately. We demand to be heard, to apply informed solutions to these ecological crises, and to create a national assembly by which to initiate the solutions needed to change our present cataclysmic course. We refuse to bequeath a dying planet to future generations by failing to act now. Beautiful, beautiful words. This is inspiring, actually, honestly. I know that there's a general consensus that there's nothing to do. It's all we're all done for, and just sit back and enjoy the ride if you can. But I don't know. I just don't know about that. I don't believe that everybody believes that, and I don't believe that that we should just sit around and go, oh well. Over the falls, guys. If we're gonna go, let's go out fighting. Seriously. I wholeheartedly support this Extinction Rebellion. And I am very interested. I know that I've talked to a few of y'all about doing something a little more action-oriented. And I am considering something more action-oriented, but let's, I don't have it quite all planned out in my brain yet, but you know, screw planning, doing, more doing, less planning, more doing. The group hopes to inspire people around the world to take similar actions, but feels a responsibility to act in the UK, where the Industrial Revolution began. For those who can make it to London the week of November 15th, the group has posted a video online called Heading for Extinction and What to Do About It, and is holding civil disobedience trainings in London, November 10th and 11th. Great. This is beautiful. There is so much to cover right now, guys. I got this. Well, let me just say, to go back to the fact that the Guardian is doing a great job covering climate change, or a better job covering climate change. Another person or channel who is not a climate change channel, but who is alternative media, who is covering climate change or trying to cover climate change. And I'm sorry for, in my humble opinion, this channel has the most spot on political stance and political insight of any alternative or mainstream channel that I watch, and it's the Jimmy Dore channel. If you, I mean, he's summing it. You know, he's got Chris Hedges on there. He's got Jill Stein. He's talking to people that are working with Julian Assange. He has really got his finger on the pulse of what the problem, you know, what the problems are that we are facing, and increasingly on his channel, and what others, you know, like Chris Hedges and like Noam Chomsky and others are saying right now. Not only are they beginning to understand the problems involved with climate change, not only are they beginning to understand the enormity of the situation with climate change, they are all saying it's time for revolution. It's time for action. It's, you know, we can't necessarily go to the polls and change things, and we're not going to be able to do that quick enough, and nobody is going to be able to get past the gatekeepers. You know, possibly in some local races, but you know, as far as nationally, nobody's going to get past the gatekeepers of the Democratic and the Republican parties. It's just not going to happen, because they are both beholden to corporate interests. They are both captured by the oligarchy. There's no way to get an adequate response from either of them. There's no way to get an adequate platform. It's just not going to happen. So we need another party. We need to back other parties like the Green Party, but you know, any party that's like seriously going to take on the two-party system. We need direct action. We need you know, as many local committees as we can form on what to do about this problem and what actions to take about the, you know, I think that thinking nationally is good, but I think that there's going to be more and more local organizations and movements happening that are going to, you know, come out of nowhere in the very near future, because this problem is fast upon us, and it's going to need, people are just going to be pissed pretty soon, and we're going to start seeing some action. So anyways, check out Jimmy Dore's channel if you get a chance. I highly recommend. Don't anybody getting on here talking about Jimmy Dore's a dummy or whatever. I don't, you know, don't do that. Okay, just don't. Just save your breath. Okay, like seriously, because if you don't get where he's coming from, that's fine. That's cool. But the thing is he's far more intelligent than anybody, especially Miss Rachel Madcow, suck-ass propagandist from whatever channel she's on. Like, he's just way more intelligent and way more insightful than anybody that you can find on mainstream media. And the mainstream media is fully complicit in our problems. If you are looking to the mainstream media for actual factual news, you are seriously lost. I don't understand what your problem is, and I don't understand what you're thinking. But just, you know, if you do watch Jimmy Dore's channel, you will you can begin to understand how the mainstream media is shaping your thoughts and shaping people's attitudes and keeping people, away from the truth. They're not bringing people the truth. They're keeping people away from the truth. I'm going to talk a little more about this, but probably in the next video because I'm going to move on. Got this email from a local political race, Cat Brooks for mayor, and this is in Oakland. But I wanted to read this really quickly because this is what's going on in California, a blue state, a fully Democratic state. This is what's going on. As a mother of a daughter with asthma in West Oakland, I lose sleep at night thinking about the plan to build a polluting coal terminal in West Oakland. I've already had to take my daughter to the hospital multiple times for her asthma. Did you know that people born and raised in East and West Oakland die an average of 10 years younger than people from Libby Schaff's neighborhood in the Oakland Hills? That's not my opinion. That's the Alameda County Department of Health. A huge part of that gap is because of the air pollution that is choking our neighborhoods in the flatlands. As mayor, I will fight to protect our community from dangerous coal exports, which would worsen West Oakland's already dangerous levels of air pollution. So, this is what's happening, in a very progressive state, California. Again, I know that I was talking about voting blue or voting green last week. Yes, I did all that. And, that doesn't mean that that's going to change anything. I just don't have any other alternatives. I don't have any other, it's the very best of the horrible, terrible choices that we have. And they are horrible and terrible because in a progressive, very blue state such as California, we have fracking, we have oil drilling, we have, all kinds of industrial abuses, and we have methane leaks, we have, wildfires, we have, drought, we have trees dying, we have all kinds of stuff happening, and it's happening by our support of the industrial civilization, by the military industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera. We are fully, totally beholden to corporate interests in our very progressive blue state. And I don't see anything really radical happening as far as fighting climate change. I don't see it. So maybe the Democrats are a better choice, but I don't know. I don't know then what. I don't know what they're a better choice than. Because, yes, Republicans, but I mean, that's like saying you're a better choice than fucking lung cancer. Anyways, moving on. This is from Counterpunch. This is by Robert Hunziker from October 30th. Collapsing rainforest ecosystems. The proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences recently issued a report on the status of arthropods in rainforests. And this is on the heels of something I read a few weeks ago. Maybe this is the same report, different take. I don't know. The report's shocking analysis discovered a collapsing food web in tropical rainforests. Oh, please. Can ecological news get any worse than this? Biologists Brad Lister and Andres Garcia of the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico returned to Puerto Rico's Liquillo rainforest after 40 years, and what they found blew them away. I believe this is the same report. The abundance of insects and arthropods in general declined as much as 60-fold, and average temps had risen by 2°C over the past 4 decades. So officially 2°C in the rainforest. According to the scientists, global warming is impacting the rainforest with distinctive gusto. According to Lister, it was just a collapse in the insect community, a really dramatic change. The insect populations in the Luquillo forest are crashing. It doesn't get much worse than crashing of ecosystem support systems, i.e. insects and arthropods in general, which are in the phylum Urthropoda, okay? Inclusive of insects, arachnids, myriapods, and crustaceans. This equates to a loss of basic structures of biosphere life forces. The research team believes that they are already seeing today what the recent IPCC report predicted for climate change in 2040. In their words, it's a harbinger of a global unraveling of natural systems. The central question addressed by our research is why simultaneous long-term declines in arthropods, lizards, frogs, and birds have occurred over the past 4 decades in the relatively undisturbed rainforests of northern Puerto Rico. Our analysis provides strong support for the hypothesis that climate warming has been a major factor driving reductions in arthropod abundance, and that these declines have in turn precipitated decreases in forest insectivores in a classic bottom-up cascade. Lister and Garcia are also compared insect abundance studies conducted in the Camala-Quixmala Biosphere Reserve in western Mexico in 1980 to the year 2014, finding temps increased 2.4 C. You got that? Y'all hear that? 2.4 C. And biomass of insects and arthropods in general declined 8-fold. Their report prompts all kinds of questions about the health and stability of the world's ecosystems. For one, tropical rainforests are the final frontier of pristine wilderness in the world. People do not live there, and other than scientists, few people visit. Therefore, if arthropods and invertebrate animals like insects and spiders are crashing in abundance, then something is horribly amiss. After all, Luquillo is protected rainforest, but alas, that doesn't prevent the impact of global warming, which is on the rise in the tropics. According to this scientist, our results suggest the effects of climate warming in tropical forests may be even greater than anticipated. Already, it was reported back in March of 2018 that insect losses of 40% to 80% were happening around the world outside of and beyond tropical rainforests. Now it appears that insect loss is truly global, not missing a corner of the planet. It's everywhere. That's worse than bad news. It's dreadful. It's indicative of a living planet in its early stages of dying throes, but still hanging in there. Nobody knows for how much longer. The big question is, what are the consequences of loss of large portions of insect life? Answer, all living things in the food chain above insects also decrease in abundance, or in plain English, they die. E.g., frogs, lizards, birds, and ultimately Homo sapiens, assuming ecosystems eventually crumble. Significantly, insects are the primary source for ecosystem creation and support. The world literally disintegrates without mischievous burrowing, forming new soil, aerating soil, pollinating food crops, etc. Nutrition for humans happens because insects pollinate. After all, 97% of the animal kingdom consists of invertebrates such as insects, crabs, lobsters, clams, octopuses, jellyfish, and worms. Meanwhile, insects of the world are getting the old 1-2 punch as global warming hits the tropical rainforest, whilst excessive use of chemicals hits broad-reaching continents everywhere. The underlying message in the world is that the world's ecosystems are under tremendous stress from aberrant forces such as 1, out of ordinary temperature rises, aka global warming, and 2, toxic chemicals, e.g., industrial toxins are now routinely found in newborn babies, in mother's milk, in the food chain, in domestic drinking water, in deep water squid, at Mount Everest base camp, in fact, worldwide. Humans emit more than 250 billion tons of chemical substances a year in a toxic avalanche that is harming people and life everywhere on the planet. Here's an excellent video about the insect dilemma on YouTube by Ben Guarino of the Washington Post. Postscript, NOAA has issued a warning as of 10/25/2018 that the entire Great Barrier Reef from November 2018 to February 2019 is at heightened risk of massive bleaching and coral death because of heat stress. If the models prove accurate, it would mean the entire Great Barrier Reef would be damaged by climate change, and coral populations would trend toward very low levels, affecting the reef's tourism and fishing industries and the employment they support. Yeah, who gives a flying fuck about that? The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's recent 1.5C report, warned coral reefs were especially, I mean, yeah, it's not the employment they support that's important. It's the life-giving processes that they support. Yeah. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's recent 1.5C report warned coral reefs were especially vulnerable to climate change. At even 1.5C of warming, it estimated the planet would lose 80% of its coral reefs. At 2C, they would all be wiped out. So is it time for a revolution? Yet? Is it time for some mass action yet? Maybe. Oh, I forgot to put that little temperature from, it's not that big of a deal, but I was going to put that the temperature in Washington that I was supposed to post yesterday and I didn't. So maybe I'll put that right here. So just real quickly, a few things I've been noticing in my world. A few anecdotes about strange things on land and in the sky. I was giving somebody a ride the other day, and we turned on a street in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, and it was like she woke up out of a daydream, and she was like, "Whoa, is this Union?" And I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "There's supposed to be more trees here. What happened to the trees?" And I was like, yeah, they've been cutting them down. They've been dying. And she was like, "What?" Just because people are glued to their phones and their iPads and whatnot. And then they're not like noticing the world around them. Another anecdote about the trees is as I was driving my father somewhere the other day, yeah, we came upon this intersection that I've seen a million times in my life. And the reason, because I've seen it a million times in my life, I know that this view from this intersection is just filled with greenery. It's just trees. It's just, right. It's very, very wooded. That's what this area where I live is actually famous for, is trees. It's very green. It's very lush. And as we came upon this intersection, I looked up at the tree line, and it was like all the way, it was just low and sparse, and I could see just straight over the tree line, and I could see all these dead branches of trees sticking up. It's completely altered. This once lush green, very thick kind of wooded area is disappearing. It's almost, it's been chopped down. It's been dying. It's just insane, like what's going on. Also, for those that care, for those that don't care, don't bother commenting. But for those that care, it seems like the contrails are back in the sky for whatever reason. It's abnormally warm and still, so the air is very still. And it's probably like prime time for them to go, let's do some sun blocking. So they've been doing a lot of masking, and whatever it is that they're doing as far as creating clouds, it's pretty dang efficient, because whatever they're putting in the sky like really turns into a big kind of cloud cover really fast. But when I woke up this morning, it was dead clear. There were a couple of these little like contrail, like I don't know, they're leavings, these contrail, like that small contrails that is spread out. And then there was this, I'll show you, I'm going to put this video in right now. There was this big contrail going across the sky, and I was like, I see you. And so couple hours later, looks like this. And then towards the end of the day, it looks like this. Pretty crazy, like what's going on. Like if you didn't look up, if you didn't look at the sky and notice what was going on, you'd just be like, oh, it just got cloudy all of a sudden. What's happening there? You know, if you don't pay attention, you can't be like, what are you talking about? They're making clouds. Just don't, you know, whatever. Anyways, but if you do pay attention, you'd be kind of like, what the hell is that? What are they doing? It ain't natural. I'm telling you that much. I'm telling you that much right now. They're already doing it. They're absolutely doing it. Sam Carena has a geoengineering, is it Sam Carena's? I think it's his page. But anyways, there's a whole geoengineering page on Facebook talking about, I mean, they're talking about, yes, what should we do in the future when, you know, to combat climate change? And, you know, the military is already like way into it. They've been way into it. You know, they're way into it. And if you don't know that, or don't think that, or don't suspect that, I don't know what you're thinking. I know you want to just be a normal person and just think nice thoughts like everybody else, you know, if that's what makes you happy, go ahead. Moving on to how the Democrats are not really the greatest people, if you didn't already know that. This is from The Guardian. Precious little, quote unquote, Democrats lack robust climate change plan despite a global crisis. Party wary of wading into tough political fight on environment, even though Democrats could retake House and midterms. And this is actually the really terrible thing about Trump right now, is that and what's also terrible about the fact that that Hillary Clinton was the Democratic nominee in 2016, is that things have gone so far to the right, and the Democratic Party has moved to the right along with everybody else. And because they feel like anything left or radical is just going to be too radical, or people are going to be like, oh no, we don't want to turn off voters, and we don't want to turn people off. Let's get real middle of the road, and let's be real like moderate. That's not what people want. People want radical change. Bernie Sanders already proved it. That's what people want. So, you know, there's lots of other channels and lots of other people talking about this, but the Democrats got radical. Everybody would go, yay. But they're, you know, as seen in New York, as seen in a few other places, but a lot of the progressive candidates are kind of trying to moderate themselves in order to, you know, because they think that's what they have to do against Republicans. And that's not what they have to do. They've got it all backwards. Blah, blah, blah. Party wary of wading into tough political fight on environment, even though Democrats could retake House in midterms. Democrats don't have a plan to address climate change comprehensively or even to a significant degree. If they regain control of the US government in the near future, despite criticizing Republicans as the party of pollution, after failing to get conservatives on board to limit planet warming gases through legislation and regulation, Democratic leaders in Washington are now wary of wading into another tough political fight despite an intensifying environmental crisis. If Democrats win back the House in Tuesday's midterm election, their strategy is to hold oversight hearings on Donald Trump's environmental rollbacks and pursue more incremental and popular measures, according to close observers in the senior Democratic aide. Environmental advocates hoping progressive politicians will lead efforts to save the planet may be shocked to learn there's no wide-ranging strategy or headline-grabbing legislation waiting to be unveiled, even if the Democrats take the White House in 2020. When that's actually why they're going to lose. They're not going to take back any seats. They're not going to take back Congress or Senate. I'm sorry. If they do, I would be highly surprised. The reason why is because nobody has any like real. There's no meat to what people are doing. Not really. A lot of it is like, we're not Trump. We're not batshit crazy, so vote for us. I mean, I suppose that's one way to do it, but not really a good way. Let's see, Scooby-Doo. Environmental advocates hoping progressive politicians will lead efforts to save the planet may be shocked. Okay. party's efforts as currently planned won't be enough to spur the rapid transformation in how society operates that leading scientists say is needed to spare humanity from the worst of rising temperatures, extreme weather, and massive societal and economic disruptions. But we can't vote green because we don't want to split the vote, and we'd be really bad people if we did that. But few in the party or the big environmental groups that traditionally support it are prepared to admit this outright. Obviously, a transformative government response to climate is clearly needed based on what we're seeing from science. We have about 10 years left to really be doing something, but it's hard for us to do because the Republican Party is largely in denial on this, said Congressman John Delaney, a Maryland Democrat running for president in 2020. How is he now? Congressman Ted Deutsch, the Florida Democrat and co-founder of the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus in the House, said he's not rosy-eyed that Democrats in the majority could get Republicans to reverse their stances on environment and climate. But I'm also not a cynic, Deutsch said. I don't reject the possibility of a major piece of legislation, and I think it's possible to put together a bipartisan bill. Democrats have a decent chance of winning a majority in the House of Representatives in the November 6th midterm elections this year, while the Republicans are predicted to keep control of the Senate. I mean, I guess, you know, I hope the Democrats do that. I really, really hope. I don't see it. Senior Democratic aide familiar with the party's policy blueprints were resigned to the situation. The aide said it doesn't make sense for the House to work on legislation that Republicans in the Senate will never take up. The source, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because the issue is politically sensitive, said Democrats will instead try to encourage infrastructure projects to prepare communities for climate change and invest in green power. The source said increasing awareness will be a huge part of an eventual solution, and that Democrats hope to lay that groundwork. The current leadership isn't considering anything like the contentious cap on greenhouse gases that Democrats pushed for in 2009, or a tax on industry for carbon pollution. The aide said Republicans have demonized attempts to slow climate change, making the issue politically intractable. That is despite almost daily reports of melting glaciers, dying wildlife, and worsening storms in the U.S. and across the globe. Democrats don't only fear future futile battles over legislation with Republicans, they're also wary of turning moderate Americans against the party if climate solutions raise the cost of living, but they're going to have to explain this to people eventually. Oh, guys. George David Banks, a former Trump White House energy and climate advisor, said Democrats aren't planning any major legislation because they are still dealing with the fallout from the failure of Waxman-Markey. Democrats have twice tried and failed to take major steps on climate change. In 2009, when they controlled Congress and the White House, the House passed the controversial Waxman-Markey proposal to cap greenhouse gases, but the Senate never took it up following a massive lobbying campaign against it that included ads warning of higher gasoline prices. Okay. After that defeat, the Environmental Protection Agency in 2015 finalized a rule for power companies to burn less coal, but the Supreme Court halted it, and Trump's administration is in the process of rolling it back. This is what happens when you are beholden to corporate interests. It's very simple. Oh, this is depressing. Progressive environmental advocates say Democratic leaders, including Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, aren't thinking big enough now. What I worry about is that Pelosi is going to get bogged down with oversight and is going to introduce a bunch of small bore tax credit bills, said R.L. Miller, the co-founder of the grassroots-focused advocacy group Climate Hawks Vote. Miller cautioned that while smaller federal efforts in states work to limit climate pollution are good, the U.S. will still need to make big changes across every sector of its economy. And, you know, all of this is just, you know, the media, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Fox News, you know, there's so much disinformation and non-information out there that it makes it very hard to actually educate people about what is happening. And of course, people who are trying to educate people about what is happening are being stifled They're being muzzled. They're being stymied in their efforts. Channels like this and other channels that are trying to tell people about climate change are, it's hard to get the word out. They're even being, the algorithms on YouTube aren't very nice to them, on top of the fact that it's not a great subject for, most people are like, climate change, I don't know. Yeah, it's a serious uphill battle, but I'm encouraged by, the George Monbiot's of the world. I'm glad he's out there putting his money where his mouth is. Chris Hedges is out there putting his money where his mouth is. We need more journalists being part of the revolution or the rebellion, and not just talking about it. And this one included, right here, sitting right here. It's time to be about it. It's time to stop talking about it. It's time to be about it, if that's what we're going to do, because there's not any time left. I don't know, with, the other problem with Democrats is that nobody, we've spent 2 years talking about Trump and Russia and how crazy Trump is and how terrible he is. And, oh my, just sitting there, with disbelief hands, everybody's just aghast at what's happening right now, instead of putting forth policy platforms for the Democrats that actually are showing some signs of going to the left, showing some signs of, taking care of this problem, showing some signs of rolling back the ever creeping hand of capitalism and militarism in our lives. The Democrats just aren't doing that. They're not willing to do that. They're just trying to figure out ways to get elected without rocking the boat. And that ain't going to cut it, folks. It didn't cut it in 2016, and it's not going to cut it in 2018, and it's not going to cut it in 2020. We need radical change. We need radical action. We need it right now. And so anybody with the cojones, the huevos, to get out there and be a radical candidate for president, and any other office, I think, I think actually they'll probably fare better than anybody thinks. Is that all I have for you tonight? I don't know if that's all I have for you. I'm going to finish up with a couple of comments I wanted to read. It's getting late. This is from Slick the Skeet. The movie Monsters, Inc. used human scares for energy. In a way, we are similar. They took our comfort with our security long ago. Towards the end of the movie, they realized laughter and happiness made them more energy. The elite are being tested with the idea that they can become immortal through AI. Google owns everything, and there's a reason. They have concentrated input of mass consciousness being stimulated in real time. Cell phones. At some point, your personality is formed in an AI avatar state, and they are basically trying to log into the best, most badass avatar that humans literally can achieve. They are stressing our conscious worldwide for stimulation. Just think about 5G. It's bad for your health. The upload speeds will be even faster than ever. We will be in a 3D matrix. I rather like that comment. Thank you, Slick Skeet. This is from Robert Hammond. The impossible conversation here. Let me try to start it. Eliminate value in housing, precious metals, money, trees, food, animals, ECT, shut off electric and water. Goes with it. No refrigerator or gasoline. Do away with TV, computers, phones. Park all vehicles and planes. No more work or stores. Stop trains. Gut consumption. No more military or nuke power. No more bombs. Excuse me. No more governments. No more sports. Yeah, no more sports. Think about how wasteful and polluting sports are. Professional sports. No more gambling. No more vacations. No more construction, or all life on the planet dies. And you know that's true at this point. I have lost respect for governments, scientists, physics. They should have had the brains to guide us down the right path for survival, and wasn't even close. value and consumption destroyed us all. My dumbass could have done a better job. Yeah. I mean, we kind of have to turn everything off. And then what do we do about the dimming? What do we do about the global dimming? So we can't turn everything off. We have to turn everything down and then figure out a way to somehow sequester, engineer something. How to avoid nuclear power plants melting down, how to avoid global dimming. It's pretty massive. It's a pretty massive task. Thank you so much for your eyes, ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.